Good. Hello and welcome again to my YouTube channel, Ayurveda Yoga Nest. Everything that you want to know about yoga, Ayurveda and related topics. I'm a therapist of 45 years and today I want to take you on a little journey according to the recent questions and a little bit of an inquiry into some topics that are so important that I can't be quiet about them anymore. So please also press the like and subscribe button so that helps our work and so we can continue as much as possible. So today's topic is about breathwork, ice bath, holotropic breathing and other techniques that are nowadays propagated over Instagram, TikTok as trauma release therapies. And from my perspective, I also have to just put that a little bit in brackets. From my perspective as a therapist, I always see things that have gone wrong. And so if you personally had some very good experiences, you're invited to leave a comment in the comment section so that I can also see the positive, possibly benefits of these methods. Because from my point of view and my experience, unfortunately, there has been a lot of problems occurring in the recent times. So I came across the Wim Hof method about, I think, 8 to 10 years ago with one of his primary students, which I absolutely appreciate till today. And we were having a session in an old club in Berlin that was unheated. It was a November day in Berlin, means it was pretty chilly and there was ice outside. And the setting was prepared and I had to be, as a naturopath, the observing medical person. So everything was prepared. It was a pool outside with a lot of ice. And the people started doing their breathing exercises to warm themselves up. So there were about 50 people. When you now start counting that each ice bath was considered to be 3 minutes, for each person, that means a lot of people might have to wait for 3 hours and even more until they could get into the ice. And the outside temperature was about 5 degrees minus. So at this point, I was just like, I really don't feel that I can support this. Also, I've never seen these people before. I have no idea about their mental, physical, or other condition. I don't know if they have been on alcohol, on drugs, or anything. It's Berlin after all. If they are hungry by now, and if they do have any previous experiences or consisting conditions health-wise. So I said, I actually don't want to do that. And so I was then just kept as an emergency in case there has to be a rescue to be done. So what happened with the first students of that method was they just immersed in the ice bath and they were shivering, of course. Then they were encouraged to stay on, which I in itself find problematic. And some of them then got such an adrenaline rush that besides any warning, they started jumping off the bridge into the river Spree, which is just really not a nice river to jump in. So at some point, I had to leave the venue because also it went much over time. There was no heating condition, there were no towels provided, there was no warm water, there was no warm room. So the people after the ice bath were completely left alone. So that might be an exceptional, unfortunate setting, but unfortunately, I found more of these settings. And then when I do ice bath in the forest, I see again the same thing happen. And what we do is, when I go into the ice, is actually opposite. So we don't warm up. I often take patients. We actually try to relax and calm down, become equanimous, become aware, become mindful in the sense of the environment and of our own feeling. And if I have the slightest doubt that the person is not comfortable right now, I can give them time. In the other setting, there was no time. because everybody was waiting because they were freezing outside in their bikinis. So when I take my patients into ice, there's also another difference because they slowly start walking, which means the water pressure is just gradually increasing on the system. So we start on the ankles and then slowly, not only the cold, but also the water pressure builds up. If you jump into a pool, immediately there's a lot of pressure on your system. And when you then get out of the pool, the pressure is released and the blood is just rushing into the previously constricted vessels, which is a reflex caused by noradrenaline. So when people walk slowly into the ice and also then take their time to gradually come out of the ice, we see a gradual acceptance and accommodation of the body to the stresses, which is cold and pressure. Then comes also the mental stressor, which in that setting, in the Wim Hof setting, was you can do that, you just have to try harder, breathe, which a lot of people with a traumatic history background actually know as harmful, because this is the lesson that they learned through their life, that it's not through confidence and self-awareness that they are able to submit themselves to difficult tasks, but through you can do that, which actually is very forceful and an energy that I really can't tolerate when it comes to risky methods. So when I take my patients, and so we are actually trying to connect to everything in nature, and I have this little bunch of ducks that you probably have seen on my Instagram account who are very helpful, who mostly approach my patients. And then we are just taking our time to gently and gradually appreciate the nature around us, the cold, the trees, sometimes the rocks of ice. And only then, if the person feels like, I think I feel really relaxed now and I trust you and I know you're here with me, then very gently we allow the body to submerge. We always keep the head out, because that's another thing. When you do hyperventilation, like Wim Hof's method is introducing you to in order to warm up, if you do hyperventilation, you can easily drown. There is a lot of footage from Scott Carney on YouTube. He's an investigative journalist, about deaths that occur when you submerge your body fully after hyperventilation. So please watch that as well to make sure that your own experience will be beneficial for you, so that you feel after coming out of the ice, you actually have been in a deeper connection with yourself, feeling much more confident, but not high. You might feel jolly and elated, but you should not feel high, because this feeling of high is a rush that just keeps more adrenaline in your body and you are releasing a lot of dopamine. And this is some stuff that we say that might hook you on a method, but it's not in the proper setting of healing. So if you take it as like a party event, then why not? But if somebody is trying to sell it to you as a beneficial method to regulate yourself, to benefit from it because you learn to just overcome difficulties, then they are much safer methods that also don't go through extremes, but go through gentle increasing of a stressor, repetition and adaptation. Because this is how our nervous system actually learns safety and makes progress in the healing of trauma. So when you in fact just give a rush and create an unsafe situation where you go into a survival mode, then your body is actually experiencing the world again as an unsafe place, which you can only just overcome by a stress response. This is not what we actually wanted to teach. We wanted to teach calmness, steadiness, confidence, and repetition, and in this sense, just trying to make long-term changes opposed to short-term changes. So therefore, the method that I'm teaching, sometimes with my friends here in Berlin, and sometimes on Gozo, with different organizations, or myself, just in one-to-one sessions. I would like to call this not breath work, because also the whole concept I find disturbing, because the breath is not something to be worked on. I call my technique Atemliebe, which means the love of breathing. So when we go back to the term breathwork, then it is considered something that we could actually influence. We are influencing it in a negative way, day by day. So when we look back to our first breath that we take, it is actually not that we take the first breath. The first breath is entering us. And then it very gently just expands our lungs, and it just moves into every bit of our system and opens up our energy source, which is the biggest energy source, which is oxygenation of the mitochondria, and therefore creating energy. So when we now feel that everything that happens to us has an impact, we slowly also feel that, we start just hunching our shoulders forward. We feel that our diaphragm gets locked when there are things that we don't want to say, we should have said. There's stress from our early childhood, then perpetuated through school times, and then, of course, in our adult life. All this adds up to changes in our breathing pattern, in our ability to relax, and in our ability to open up the space. And then when I forcefully work on the breath, I think I actually do miss the point of gentleness and calmness, and of the deeper knowledge of pranayama, which comes from the yoga, basically as a technique to bridge the inner and outer world, and to observe how the breath moves, but not to forcefully alter it. Of course, we do have techniques like Kapalabhati and Bhastrika and so, but when we look into the modern use, there's an important saying by Mr. B.K.S. Iyengar when he said, we first have to accomplish a proper technique and body postures and asanas before we can even think of doing pranayama. Then we see now people whose body is just not ready for these drastic changes, who dive into breath work and do extreme shifts in the body's acidity and alkaline levels. If you exhale too much carbon dioxide, your breathing pattern gets so much disturbed. It's called hypocapnia, and it can lead to spasms and unfortunate shift in your nervous system and in your blood system and in your organs. So please try to be mindful and find a great teacher who actually teaches you first to be able to open all the pathways, the gates of Vayu, for instance, where the breath is moving inside you, just like a wind is moving over a sail and just makes a sailing boat go, or just like the wind is brushing over trees and the wind is brushing over the sea. So that you feel this brushing of the wind inside you, opposed to just wanting to alter it in order to have more energy, alertness, or another high. So as you can see, I'm pretty much against this search of the hit, because the search of the hit is something that triggers our nervous system. And if we go into deeper healing, stability, and resilience, and overcoming traumatic experiences, the hit is the opposite of stability, resilience, endurance, and being able to endure discomfort with ease. So these are the main topics when it comes to breathing, and to other techniques where I feel there is the same when I see on Instagram people just shaking and releasing something. We know when we work with patients that sometimes they get very close to shakiness and release, but when we then just move the focus back to the inside and you feel that this shakiness is actually back to be integrated, and they feel the calmness and the stillness when they come out of the session. A lot of the students gave us as a feedback that instead of being depressed after breathwork workshop or holotropic breathing or other techniques, I actually felt for the first time that I didn't have to think about that something went wrong in my life. I actually felt for the first time there's a proper way out, and that I'm not defined through what has happened to me, but I can define myself how I can deal with this now. And that doesn't mean that we want to minimize the impact of any traumatic experience, or that we want to overload a patient with something like a fake responsibility, like, you make a decision and then you can get out of your trauma. That's not that. It is on the level of experiencing and feeling of being strong enough to move on, opposed to suppress, opposed to cathartic release, and then going back into the same trap. So I want to encourage you to just be calm and peaceful, be adventurous, but not leaning yourself too much out of the window. Respect your resistance. Respect the moments where you feel uncomfortable and listen to them, because many of you might have ignored for too long that there is sometimes a voice telling you the right thing to do. And it's normally not this, I can do that, but also that I feel content. I feel that what Patanjali named Santosha. I feel joyful. I don't feel high. I feel joyful. And I feel I'm now in a place where I can make peace with myself, and then spread that. So thank you very much for listening. I'm curious to listen to your comments. I know it's quite controversial. And so that's why I want to mention again, this is coming from my own experiences with breathwork and ice baths with Wim Hof. And this has been leading to this significant change in my holistic healing approach. And you can contact me. I would be very happy to answer your questions and just keep me alert about your ideas about what I'm saying. So thank you very much for listening, and hope seeing you again for the next episode, which will be then enriched with your questions. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.